Hey, Armin here. Welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show, where we cover training, nutrition, supplementation strategies, and a whole lot more. So stand by. Hey, and welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Armin Eckelbarger.
I'm Frank Mills. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you, whether you're watching or listening. Thank you so much. We've got a great show for you today. Today, we're going to be talking about nutrition strategies for the holidays, and we need that because I don't know about you. I just got through Thanksgiving, and yeah, Arm and I ate a little too much turkey among much more, but at least it was all good for me for the most part. So
Right.
that's good. But we're going to be talking about that. And of course, in the second part of your show, we have fan questions. So we'll be talking about all of that. But let's get started about these nutrition strategies, Armin. It sounds like really good timing. I know we just did miss Thanksgiving, but what made you decide on this topic?
Well, I get asked it a lot anyways, and
Right.
from whether it's a Facebook post or LinkedIn or different social media posts that I'm doing, and then also my clients are always asking, "What's going to be our strategy?" Going into this with things we want to be aware of, and
Right.
so because they want to get the best results, and probably should have done it earlier, but I just didn't really think about it at the time. But I guess it's better now than ever. So, but it's good information, I think, and I think it'll help people. So we'll see what they think.
Well, depending on who you are, you get kind of sidetracked very easily because you got neighbors, you got friends and family. They bring over things that maybe you haven't tried before, you want to try. So strategically, you definitely want to be careful with this. So, I
Uh,
don't know where to begin. And that's what I was going to ask you. Where should we start with this?
well, like in a nutshell, we'll start with the basics. So when it comes to eating in general, you want to focus on protein and good fats.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the nice thing is you get fat from your protein because it's always combined, which Vince has always made statements about because that's how Mother Nature made it. So that's good. But then on other fats to help fill you up, you can look at olive oil, grass-fed butter, avocados, coconut, dark chocolate, cottage
Hmm.
or regular quality cheeses, those kind of fats. And so, because they're going to fill you up quicker and then you're going to basically eat less. So, and that's one of the nice things about eating protein and fats. They do fill you up and satiate much faster. And then, eat your food slowly so you allow it to get into the system. And that also helps fill you up faster just by taking your time chewing it and doing things like that versus wolfing it down because there's always a delay when it hits the
Right.
system and it starts to break down. So that would be the basics as far as I'm concerned. And then you just follow up your protein, your fats with some carbohydrates if you're going to be having them, or
Mm-hmm.
if you're not having them, then go that route.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, all that sounds good, but what about the snack stuff, man? I mean, that's the stuff where we get in trouble.
Yeah, that sort of does. It tends to get pretty ugly with that. I mean, because you have, you're having fun and you're like looking at it. It's like, well, what will you hurt? And I get that. So it really depends. I mean, if you're in good shape and you're lean, probably not as big a deal. Okay,
Right, right.
enjoy a little bit of it. But if you're somebody that's struggle bus and doesn't has no control, I would say that you don't want to do that. Now, with that being said, the thing is you really want to eliminate processed foods. So, we're talking about the chips, the cakes. I mean, processed cakes. I mean, you can have homemade stuff, but anything's
Right.
processed, cookies, breads, etc. That's not going to help you. I mean, because all they're going to do, they're going to convert to fat because of there's no fiber in them. They convert
Mm-hmm.
to sugar. They convert from sugar to convert into sugar pretty quickly. And so, if the muscles in the liver, like we talked about in the past, if they're already full, there's no place for them to go except to right to the fat cells, and then boom, now you got some more weight that you just, body fat that you just put on.
Right,
So,
right.
obviously, if you're going to be having snacks, eating the real natural uh, foods is always going to be a better bet because you're going to have some fiber, minimal preservatives, additives, and the other trash they put into the processed food to
Hmm.
keep it so you can store it and then try to make it taste good. So that's what you really want to avoid anyways, no matter what you're doing in your nutrition program, is just don't have that kind of stuff, period. But especially during the holidays, there's always somebody always brings Chex Mix and 3 or 4 different types of chips, and
Right, right.
again, if you're lean, you can get away with it, but at the same time, if you're not lean, I would avoid it. And so,
Right,
and at this point
right.
in time in my life, I'm 59, I just avoid that stuff.
Gotcha,
Because
gotcha.
there's nothing in it. There's no benefit to me eating it, so that's what I do.
Right. Well, it's always like a war zone to me because you're looking at all these different things, and
Oh
you
yeah,
know you're trying to do these calculations in your head, like, okay, if I eat this, how much is that? What should I do? And I think sometimes you got to allow yourself to have some fun too. But you're right,
right.
you got to be careful with exactly what you're eating or how much, especially processed food, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, the old saying, and I know it's holidays and everything, but eat, drink, and be merry. What about drinking? What about alcohol, Armin?
Uh,
I know you and I have done some shows on this before, but around this time of year, people enjoy alcohol, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, because it's you're going to be have it around you, and I'm no saint either. I mean, I think that you can enjoy yourself, but
Right.
I use an approach that I feel works really really well for me. But
Hmm.
it's up to the person. But I'll give you some things that I would suggest. Okay, first
Okay.
and foremost is with alcohol, there's a lot of these mixtures that have a ton of sugar.
Right. Right.
That is not good. So I would not get the sugary mixed drinks. Okay. And obviously beer has carbs in it. And you get a
Yes.
low carb beer, but that would be the worst case scenario for me. I just do a low carb beer, but I really don't do beer. But that's something you want to keep in mind because if you drink a lot of beer, you're going to have all those extra carbohydrates,
Right.
and then any other alcohols that contain carbs. Now, not all alcohols contain carbs. Okay,
Hmm.
but the thing is, you do want to. I think you should, and this is a tough one for people to probably digest. But some of the things that I've read and studied is that you typically want to avoid the grain alcohols. Now, the reason for the grain alcohols not being so good for you, beer, etc., is the grain produces cytokines
Hmm.
from breaking down, which goes also for grains that you eat. So these cytokines are basically free radicals. And so these free radicals, they're going to start to raise the inflammation levels of your body. And so it takes longer for that to clear out of your system and especially
Hmm.
clear out of your liver. So that's what I typically suggest to my clients. And so my go-to when I'm going to enjoy myself, so to speak, is I do potato vodka, zero
Okay.
carb.
Okay.
They say it burns a little cleaner than grains because it doesn't produce cytokines. Again,
Mm.
that's probably debatable. But I'd
Okay.
mix that with 5 calorie cranberry. So versus I have zero carbs. So all I have is the 7 kilocalories per gram of alcohol that I need to burn up, and I have minimal cytokines, so I don't get a lot of inflammation from it. Then like we've talked about in the show on multiple occasions, when I get done drinking, I always make it a point that I have you know, eight so of the beef liver capsules with a
Hmm.
lot of water to help the liver get in there and help because it helps detox the liver, and that helps with not getting a hangover, helps sleep better, and that works
Gotcha.
pretty good. So
Hmm.
that's something I also think that it's a real simple tip to do. Now they have things commercially that are supposed to help with the hangover and stuff, but this just helps the liver clear it out and cleanse it naturally. So that's what I do there.
Gotcha. All right. So I am curious on your potato vodka and cranberry.
Yeah.
What's the mix content on that? Because somebody may want to try that.
Well, it mixes up well. It's just you just kind of do your preference with it. You can throw a lime in there, which goes really well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, that's really my go-to for me. I mean, I'll do some other things from time to time, but that's really what I have because
And on
and it
vodka,
works
you
well for
can't,
me.
right.
Yeah.
And on vodka, you can't really taste the vodka anyway, correct?
Well, I mean, there's different brands of potato vodka. I
Right.
like the Lucas Sour for the money. That's a really good one. You've got
Hmm.
I don't know, Blue Ice, and there's a lot of them now starting to come
Right.
out because
Right.
it's become more popular. But you just have to check the taste of them because some of them are built a little bit more than others.
Right.
But yeah, it has a
Right.
pretty neutral
Hmm.
flavor to it. So that's where the
Okay.
cranberry kind of takes over, and I think it goes down really well. I throw a lime in there, so that's just
That's nice. No.
my holiday thoughts on that.
No, that's nice because a lot of the holiday alcohols really do contain a lot of sugar, like,
Oh, it's horrible,
the
man. I mean, you
rums, the
start reading
bourbons.
labels. Oh, you
Yeah.
start reading labels, you're like, oh my god.
Yeah. I know a lot of the rums, their actual foundation is sugar. And the same with brandy. There's a lot of sugar in sweet and brandy. So
Yeah, it's
yeah.
comes from grapes, but you just have to read up on each of them as far as the carbohydrate intake because some of them don't have any carbs either.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that's what you had to check on.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get back to the eating part of this thing. Now, I don't know about everyone else, but if you've got a big family, you're sitting at the
Hmm.
big family table, what about these large meals? You see them on TV a lot, and I don't know if everybody has a big large family. What about that situation, Armin? You're sitting at the big table, you got 18 or 20 people sitting there.
Yeah, well, you're definitely going to have large meal capacity in that situation. So, it is what it is. So for me, I just enjoy it. I'm lean, so I'm not going to sweat it. So,
Right.
and again, if you're lean, probably not a big deal because you're eating homemade food in most cases.
True.
But
True.
if it's man-made, as far as it being already prepackaged, well, that'd be a red flag for me. But most of the stuff you get at Thanksgiving, which is the nice thing, is it's pretty much real food. It's been made. So,
Gotcha.
outside of some of the ingredients that were possibly processed, but at least you have some fiber in there, and you got a good solid source of food. So
Right.
my approach to it is I know I'm going to have that kind of meal. All right, so and you're mixing you know protein, fats, and carbs, a lot of them. So I like to take some digestive enzymes, which is the thing Vince was big on, especially this kind of meal to
Mm-hmm.
help with breaking down the food a little faster. And it helps to really reduce the bloating that can come about because again, as you're mixing protein and fats, which are acidic in nature, with carbohydrates, which are alkaline in nature, that's going to cause the gas and the bloating to happen. So the quicker that the digestive system breaks down the protein, the less bloating that you're going to have from those carbohydrates. So that's kind of what I like to do, and it works pretty well. It kind of clears things out, and then again, you just want to keep your sanity about how much you're going to eat, okay? Because
Right.
stuff's all really good, but that's a good approach, I think. And I think if you try those digestives, especially with the ones that we have from NSP,
Right.
it'll help, and because you don't have to take them all the time. But when you're having that a large amount of food like that and it's a mix, I think it's a good move. But that's just me.
Absolutely. Hey, some good tips here. Now, I have had friends that do this, but what are your thoughts about just trying to fill up with fluids so that you eat less? Because I know a lot of people, they'll drink like a big glass of water or something before they eat about 10 or 15 minutes to kind of fill up a little bit. Does that really help? Is that something that works?
Yeah, that's another question that comes up a lot. I mean, it makes logical sense. You fill a stomach full of water that you're going to be able to eat less, and it can do that. But the problem you're really going to face here is the
Mm-hmm.
having a lot of water before or even during the meal. It dilutes the hydrochloric acid, which is what you need to break that food down. So it's going to actually create more problems. So yeah, drink a lot of water before and then during the meal and even after the meal, not a good thing to do regarding hydrochloric acid. So you want to
Hmm.
keep your fluids to a minimum while you're eating. And then after like 20, 30 minutes after the food's in your system, then you can start having some fluids. Probably not gonna be a big deal, but you just want that hydrochloric acid to be high so that you're gonna break down the food. So that's
Right.
the big thing you'll be missing there if you just drink too much water. You dilute it, and then it's going to take everything longer to break down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So I know that we've covered a lot of different things. What else do you have for us?
All right, so like if you're somebody that's trying to watch their weight, and not put on excess body fat, then I would suggest that you look to fast for 12 to 16 hours a day, okay, prior to all this, anyways. And again, the fasting just helps to clear out any undigested proteins, especially if you can do like a 24-hour fast. But like a 12 to 16-hour fast will do some of that. And then this is also good for improving your eating hormones, which is leptin says, "Hey, I'm full," and ghrelin says, "Hey, think about eating on the grill. Hey, I got to eat." So they get more balanced when you have less food intake and you keep your insulin level down. So fasting, 12 to 16 hours or even a
Mm-hmm.
24-hour fast is great to help keep things more manageable um, for when you're eating and stuff. So I would suggest that. Most people are already doing some kind of fasting these days, it seems like. But if you're not, then that's another way to go about it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
some people kind of freak out on fasting because they're eating a lot of carbs throughout the day. And that can be a little tougher because your insulin's elevated and insulin's like, hey, we need more carbohydrates for energy here. And that can be a little bit of a tough transition. So you want to get on that earlier than later if you're going to do it. So that's just my thoughts on it. Now, some people can fast by eating carbs all day and it doesn't really seem to affect them as much, but it's not how it affected me. So
Right. Right. So if you're hungry, it is the ghrelin, and to not
yeah.
have an appetite is what?
Uh, well, when you're full, your leptin hormone says, "Hey, you sense that you're getting full pretty quickly into the meal, and then
Okay.
that's what it is. It's a natural way to tell you, yeah, you have enough." So
I think I have a better relationship with ghrelin than I have with leptin right now.
most people do, yeah.
All right. Okay. So, Armin, what about in between meals?
Yeah, that's another good question. I don't like to snack. Now, I used to do that because had subscribed to the eat something every 2 to 3 hours.
Right. Right.
And I've done all that, and I'm not a fan of that at all. And I think that's just bad advice. So
Gotcha.
um, for me, I don't like snacking at all. So, and I only eat 3 meals a day. So my snacking is going to basically be taking some beef liver capsules or some amino acids in between meals just to keep protein synthesis going. That would be the
Gotcha.
only thing I
Yeah.
was going to do. And then, really and realistically, 3 meals is plenty for somebody like myself. But
Mm-hmm.
for most people, that's probably more food than they really need. I mean, let's be realistic here. Most people aren't that active, and the people that have a weight issue, a lot of body fat, they're getting 3 meals a day in, but they're not doing anything to burn it off. So why are you eating 3 meals a day? You don't
Right.
need it. So and this is something that's become a huge problem because people are been educated that you need to eat 3 meals a day for energy and this and that. They act like you're going to starve to death, which is
Right.
it ain't going to happen. Okay, I
Right.
mean
Right.
realistically. So or you're going to become malnourished. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So you need to use some common sense. If you cut out and start skipping a meal, I think you'll be really surprised how much more effective your body will react to it because it's less digestion work that it has to do. Now they say, well, you burn calories with digestion. Well, okay, great, but if you're not eating the calories, you don't have to worry about burning them, right? So use common sense. So if you're somebody that's training hard, yeah, you probably need 3 meals a day and then some supplementation. But if you're not, you'd be fine with
Right.
1 to 2 meals a day, and you'd be surprised that you'll get along just fine.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That I agree with you 100% there. All right. So we talked about a lot of different things, but this is the real danger zone to me is desserts.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we all enjoy desserts, and normally around this time, there's just a variety of, oh
Mhm.
man, I want to try that. Oh, that looks good too. So, how do
Oh
you
yeah.
approach desserts, Armin?
That one's always a tough one as well. For me, I'm just gonna eat them. So, but I only eat certain ones that I like the
Right.
most. I'll try something if I haven't had it before, but I'm just gonna crush it at that point because I enjoy myself during the holidays. So that's for me. Now, um, if you're smart about it, you'll want to fill up as much as you can with protein and fat. Okay, and then some natural fibrous carbs, like the green beans and the broccoli, cauliflower. Again, these
Mm-hmm.
things have fiber in, they fill you up, and it helps to clear out the system with that fiber. And then just minimizing these starchy carbs because that just keeps your insulin elevated. But then keep that in mind, and then you have some desserts. But it's like anything else; it's portion control in that regard. So just decide how much you really think you need to have. But if you feel like you're getting full, then stop. Keep it
Right.
simple. You can always have some more later,
Right.
as
Right.
another way of looking at it. But just enjoy it and use common sense most of all. Okay.
Well, you see those scenes at the dinner table, like the last piece of whatever, right? Or
Yeah.
you
Oh,
want to
yeah.
end up
Well,
doing that.
now if it's running out, well, that's a different story, obviously. But if there's plenty,
Right.
then yeah, take your time. But yeah, but if you're wanting it and you're seeing it shrink up pretty quick, like for myself, I'm gonna go and take the rest of it. That's how I go about it.
All right. So, man, we've talked about a lot of things. Is there anything that I've missed?
Well, some things that I typically would suggest is it's a good idea to do some activity after you've had those kind of meals. Okay, it's either take a walk or do a family activity. Like we'll play ping pong or we'll do something like that or play a game. But just drink fluids during that time to keep
Mm-hmm.
yourself busy because you have that food around you. So activity is always going to be a helpful thing, and it helps to burn off some of the energy, and it realistically gets your mind off the food. So, get
Gotcha.
out of the kitchen and do something else. Now, unfortunately, because you're having so many carbohydrates, most people, even myself, after they've been eating, you get that, rush of serotonin, which converts to melatonin. And that's when you get that drowsy, sleepy, pass out kind of
Mm-hmm.
syndrome from eating. So, when you're watching the sports and stuff, even myself, I'm find myself just taking a nap. So you can always do that, but if you can stay active, that's going to be better for you versus eating all that food, sitting in front of the TV, and then watching the sports, and all of a sudden you're out for
Right.
however long. But
Right.
kind of is what it is. I mean, you can always do that, but I just think if you're somebody that's struggling with the weight, you want to get on the offensive more and do it that way. I mean, I'm no better at anybody else, but
Right.
that's what I
Right.
typically do. Yeah.
I like to throw the football. I like doing that.
Yeah, there you go.
I
Exactly.
like to get outside and throw the football. But all
That's a
right.
good one.
So we're running out of time. Any final thoughts?
Yeah. Lastly, just use common sense. So,
Yeah.
if you feel like you're getting full, and you're really feasting on stuff, then just stop. Okay. And just realize there's plenty of food. There'll be more later. And, you may want to eat again later, but just keep it realistic with what you need to be eating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that way you can enjoy yourself and not feel bad or stressed when you're overdoing it. Because that's what ends up
Agree.
happening. You overdo it and then you feel bad about yourself. And then you're all negative after that. The psychology of that starts to affect you. So by using
Mm-hmm.
common sense and doing some of the things we talked about, it should help you. But it's like anything, you got to put those things into play.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Armin, great information about eating, drinking, enjoying yourself through the holidays. We appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break. Stand by for a quick word from NSP Nutrition, and Armin and I will be right back.
Hey, and welcome back to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Armin Eckelbarger.
I'm Frank Mills. Thanks again for joining us. And before we get into fan questions, I just want to let everybody and remind you guys, NSP through the holidays, they've had some amazing sales. So
Yeah.
if you're in need of supplements or if you want to stockpile like I do, get over to nspnutrition.com. I know that they had a variety of different sales on different products. They had the Black Friday, the Cyber Monday going. So don't miss out on that stuff. Check it out and stockpile on your supplements. That's all I can
Save some
suggest.
money. Save
That's
some
right.
money.
That's right. All right, Armin, on fan questions, I've been going through a lot of stuff on YouTube. I have gotten some feedback because I've been asking my friends to watch the show and to see if it'll help their friends or family. But I asked them, look, we're doing this new segment, and several of my friends and neighbors are excited, like, hey, you're going to mention me? I'm like, yeah, we will. So if you get a question into us, yes, we're going to either say your username or your handle or use your real name. It's up to you, but you can submit the questions either via the QR codes above our heads. You can also comment on YouTube, or you can email support@nspnutrition.com. All right, so let's get started, Armin. This is from YouTube, from You Gotta Be a Freak. So that's pretty interesting. But he says that he does shakes at 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 4 p.m., and before he goes to sleep. But he's curious, do you make a drink that contains 12 raw eggs and sip it throughout the day? Is it something that you can have instead of just having the Vince shake on the show that we did? Or is it a shake that you can make and just have throughout the day, like on your desk at work or something like that? If you're going to go to work, could you make multiple of the Vince drinks and make it with 30 eggs? I mean, how would you recommend that? Or just break it up on how it's supposed to be done? Pretty interesting question.
Yeah. Well, he's obviously referring to the egg, Vince's egg mixture, which is a good mixture. But you could do it. You could do it either way. You can just do the 12 egg mix, which fills a blender up pretty good, and then put that in a large container, and then sip it throughout the day, or have it in between meals, have a certain amount of it. You can obviously do 36 eggs, 3 blender full, which is a lot. If you're going to do that, you're not going to be eating much food, would be my my impression. Okay.
Right.
Because I've done the 12 egg, and that'll last you. I drank it all at once, but it'll last you several hours, probably about 4 or 5 hours. You're not going to want to touch any food. From my personal experience. So yeah, you can break it up a lot of different ways. You can take the total container of it and put it in some small bottles to have, and then take it throughout the day. So that's one way, definitely. The 36 egg, you're definitely going to have, that'd be all you'd be having, in my opinion, would be that, because it fills you up so much. But you can sip it throughout the day. I just think it's better to have things to digest. Just have a certain amount for one meal, and then 3 or 4 hours later, if you're going to have something else, then do it again. So that would be my thoughts on it. But you have to kind of experiment with that too, I would say.
Absolutely.
Depending how you respond to it. But that's how I would do it.
Oh, okay. Well, You Got to Be a Freak. Hopefully that helps you out. And, I think that's awesome that you're making those shakes. I've made them with 6, and I've had them at lunch or in between or whatever. They're so filling.
Yeah, they are, man.
Yeah, they really are. So, man, 30. I don't know if I could do that, but wow, that would be a lot.
Well, that's it'd be a challenge. But then Vince wanted to be fertile eggs, so that's another component to it versus just regular eggs. So.
All right. So I had a question from a neighbor. His name is Mike, and Mike was asking about sweets. Now, we know we want to stay away from sugar, but he was curious. He always tries to eat the desserts that he thinks maybe don't contain as much of the sugar as others. He stays away from the icings and cupcakes and stuff like that. He
Yeah.
tries to do the more natural stuff like a banana bread or a carrot cake, or he even mentioned pumpkin pie. Do you think
Yeah.
Mike's on the right track, Armin, or do you just have any thoughts with
Well,
that?
at the end of the day, a carb converts to sugar, and in which if the muscles and liver are full, because it gets converted to glucose. If they're full, it's going to go to fat. So if they're trying to lose body fat, then you still got to minimize whether it's naturally made or not, because you're just adding more body fat onto your system. The
Gotcha.
problem with the other sugars is that affects your nervous system even more, and makes you jittery and uncomfortable, things like that. You won't get that from typically a naturally made dessert.
Hmm.
So that's the benefit of that, because you don't have all the chemicals in it, the preservatives, and that kind of stuff. So I mean,
Gotcha.
that's definitely a better route to go as far as having an all natural dessert. But just understand, just because of that, it doesn't mean you're not going to store that as body fat if you have too much of it. So that
Okay.
you got to keep that in mind. So having dessert every single day, that can be pretty tough, as far as long term, because you're going to keep your insulin elevated, which is going to can lead to insulin resistance over time if you do it for a long period of time. I mean, that's what we're seeing right now in society. All these carbohydrates, and whether they're homemade or processed,
Hmm.
it's you got to watch that.
Right, right. All right. So I think that's some good information. And Mike, hopefully that helps you. We got a couple of different things on here about dairy.
Mm,
And I was real curious because, a lot of people think that having dairy, and it seems like there's this argument now, almost like carbs and sugars now, over dairy, about some of the dairy that's bad and some that's good and what you should eat, not eat. But
mm.
one was, what about raw milk? Um, it doesn't have any pasteurization, no homogenization, no drugs, and it's grass fed. What do
Mm.
you feel about that?
No, that's what Vince would recommend. I mean,
Gotcha.
raw milk, you get the enzymes from the raw milk, and you get a lot of
Okay.
benefits from raw milk. The only issue is if you do get some bacteria in it, then that can cause some problems. So it has to
Right.
be make sure it's delivered, the right way. But it's a really good nutrition. The only thing with milk that's really negative is sometimes is the estrogen levels that come through from the cow.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the bigger negatives to it as well. Is it, especially if you have body fat, it situates into the estrogen goes into body fat and doesn't really go away. It gets stored there. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest negative. But raw milk, there's plenty of people that it's just hard to find. But if you find it, it's a great nutritional source of food that you can include as again, just make it part of your overall nutrition program. I
Right.
mean, it
Right.
would be good, yeah. Now, just remember, if it's milk, it's got more carbohydrates, so
Mm-hmm.
you may want to go with like raw cream or something along those lines. Versus, I mean, unless you're good with having some carbohydrates, you're pretty lean, then the
Mm-hmm.
raw milk is also a good way to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was from Ruby Red, and now Chris Murray, he had a different take, and he was said, if dairy is so bad for us, then
Mhm.
why do most protein powders like the whey proteins and others, including, he says, including NSP milk and egg protein, are made from dairy? Then how are those bad for? How is dairy bad for us if they all contain a form of dairy? Can you
Well,
kind of?
dairy's not bad for you. That's
There you
that's
go.
just that's not a good statement. Just saying
Right.
a natural occurring source of food is bad for you is false. Okay. Now, if it's been manipulated and done with processing and things like that and hormones, well, that's a
Mm-hmm.
different story. But
Right.
dairy is not bad for you, and the casein protein from dairy burns slower, so it can stay in your system longer. So there's some benefits to that, and plus, it's a great source of calcium, which you need to get that in your nutrition program. You need calcium, okay, for bone strength and that stuff. So just saying dairy is bad is just ridiculous. I mean, it has its purpose. Okay, now if you have too much dairy, what can have, like I mentioned before, it could have some
Mm-hmm.
issues regarding estrogen, and especially if you don't want any dairy that has hormones in it. So you want to go, all natural with all these different sources of food. organic. I mean, that's a good safe way to go.
Right, right.
But everybody has different positions on that. But dairy's fine. Usually as part of, like, I have cottage cheese on a regular basis.
Mm.
It's 4% milk fat. It helps fill me up, but it's got the casein in it, so I like that, and it tastes good. So if you don't like cottage cheese, not a big deal. But I'm gonna have that. And I have cheese from time to time, but I'm not gonna have it every single day. But I do have it quite a bit though, so it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's not tearing me up or doing anything either. So, and I'm managing all that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, those are some really good questions, and we look forward to more. Again, if you want to get your questions in, please email us at support
Yeah,
at nspnutrition.com. The QR code's above our heads, or again, you can comment on the YouTube channel. And, Armin, going through Thanksgiving, I'm pretty thankful that we're able to do this show. I've gotten a
yeah,
lot of positive feedback from friends and family, other folks, either via social media who've contacted me through the QR codes and just said, hey, thanks for doing the show. We appreciate the content and we really
okay, good.
appreciate Armin's approach. So they're very thankful for that, Armin. So we appreciate it.
Well, we're to help, and again, other ideas would be good. We got some others. We had some suggestions made, so we got some new stuff coming out for the next show. So, of course, everything's new, but it should be. It could be a little controversial, so we'll see what people think of that one. So,
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Okay. All right. Well, don't forget to get your questions in, and we appreciate you watching or listening. And join Armin and I next week for a brand new episode of the NSP Nutrition Show.